clear, of the task of the question clear. Then after that, once we have moderated, then we will go back to the office, and then another exercise will happen to put those questions or items that we have developed into a paper. Remember, at the end of moderation, we do not have a paper that we can administer as an examination. What we have are items, examination items, questions. So there's another process we call compilation. Now developing a paper. So this process happens internally and is carried out by the test development division. So the test division will sit and decide, for instance, for ATP 100, these are the questions that we need. We look at our guidelines, then we will set, it's actually the actual setting of the ATP examination. So we will develop that into a paper. So the other function of this team is to ensure that the rubrics are incorporated into the final paper. Rubrics here, I'm looking at the issues of the code, the paper code, the issues of name, time, and all that are incorporated into the paper. Also, the team will ensure that security features are included in the paper, and where the candidates are permitted to carry some reference material, they will also ensure that is captured in paper. So once it's important, just for maybe purposes of preparation, to note that different papers have different structures, especially for ATP 103 and ATP 106. All other ATP subjects or units have a similar structure, where you find we have 6 questions and 1 question is compulsory. Is that okay? But for ATP 106, you find that it has 7 questions and 1 question is compulsory. And it's a paper that has sections. You find there is the first part, which is the compulsory, then it has section A, B, C. And those have the commercial, the accounting section. We have the human resource section and the office practice section. And all those sections have 2 questions each, and you're supposed to answer a question from each section. It's important that you do not answer, I've seen it happen where students have answered all the OP questions, all the human resource questions, and not answered any question on accounts. Now the instructions, we look at the instructions that we give to our markers. Because should that student score in the 2, assume for instance you score the 2 OP questions, you score the other ones, the account you didn't sit for it. We now pick just one, maybe from human resource, then and another extra question, but we'll give you a 0 in the component of accounts when you're marking. So it's important that you ensure that you do a question on what? On accounts. Now, it's also important to know that you're supposed to, I know some of you don't like accounts, but unfortunately you have to read on it, because even question 1, the compulsory question, it has to test the 3 components of the syllabus. So it has to test OP, it has to test the human resource, and it has to test accounts. So even if you don't want to answer it as an optional, we'll have to answer it as a what? As a compulsory question. So it's important that you prepare for all the 3 components of that paper. Now, for ATP 103, in as much as it follows the other structure, it also has those breaks, yeah? It has the legal drafting aspect, the legal writing aspect, and legislative writing. Apparently, what we've noted is that majority of the students concentrate on drafting, legal drafting, drafting a letter, drafting an opinion, and writing, change of words and stuff like that, and forget the legislative writing. A number of students will not touch on legislative writing. I implore you to go and prepare properly on those components. So, now when it comes to marking, again, marking is conducted by professionals, council outsource. Just like setting, we outsource our service providers who mark. And it's important to note that examination marking exercise is conducted by a panel of markers using the conveyor belt or item-based marking approach. I know you might not get that, but I can explain it. So in a conveyor belt marking, because I had some students say that I was marked unfairly, that, or I should have passed this paper. I want you to note that when we are marking in our when we are marking, we have a panel. Each LTP unit has a panel of 4 or 5 markers. Now, in a conveyor belt system, no single script is marked by an individual marker. So, if we are seated 5 of us, when you have your script, we will divide, for instance, that I'll mark question 1, another person will mark question 2, another one question 3, another one question 4, and another one, the last question. So your script has to be marked by all the markers in that panel. Is that okay? Now, the importance of that is that if I'm a strict marker, I'll have to spread my strictness in the entire script that I'm marking. If I'm lenient, all students have to benefit from that, is it? What if I'm an average marker? The same thing. Is that okay? So your papers are not marked by one person. Your papers are marked by the entire team. So if you find somebody out there who will tell you that I can help you during marking, that person is lying to you. Is that okay? Because I know a number of funny characters out there who can approach you with such, and some of them will tell you that they are council staff, or some of you will tell you they work for council. Be very careful when those things happen. So your paper is marked by all these, the panel of markers. And it's important to note also that even after marking, there are other processes that go through before, just to ensure the quality is guaranteed. Marking is normally conducted in a restricted venue to guarantee security and confidentiality. For you to qualify to be a marker also, you must have a master's degree and at least 5 years of experience. It's important also to note that markers are vetted before we engage them, and also trained on marking techniques or assessment techniques. Now, when we invite markers to the venue, one of the things they have to do is to prepare a marking scheme. Now, setters prepared a marking scheme, right? So there's the first marking scheme, the setters marking scheme or marking guide. Then the next one is the markers marking guide. Remember, the Zetas marking guide has been improved by the moderators. So when the markers come in, we will give them an opportunity to come up with their own marking scheme. And once we have ascertained that they have actually done that, then we will also share the Zetas marking scheme. Then we'll have the process that we refer to as harmonization of the marking guide. So what happens is that maybe a question, in our one question, the Zetas might have given these are the answers, and the markers might have added some, answers to that. So what we need is now a comprehensive marking scheme. And where, for instance, a question, there are situations where a question can attract two responses. All those responses are supposed to be captured. So once they have come up with the marking scheme, we will now subject them to a different process. We call that process the dummy marking process. The dummy marking process. Now, dummy marking, what we do is that we photocopy. We select. I used to be a preacher, so I used to walk around, so forgive me for that. Okay. So, dummy marking, what we do is that we photocopy, we select at least 5 copies of your, randomly, the scripts the papers that we start for, and we photocopy them and subject them to marking. So what we will do, we'll get one, for instance, we'll get your script, and the 5 people are supposed to mark that script independently. Then they will discuss, for instance, areas of discussion. For instance, we look at why did you award 7 and the other one awarded 2? Where did you get the other extra 5 marks? So we will do that marking until the purpose of that dummy marking one is for the markers to, understand or appreciate the marking guide, to familiarize themselves with the marking guide properly, and also for purposes of consistent marking, so that we do not have a situation where a student who ought to have scored a 10 ends up scoring a 3 because the marker did not see some of the answers. So that's the purpose of the dummy marking process. And once we are satisfied that they have marked the dummies, most of the time they can mark up to 6 dummies, right? And after that, then you'll be free to be given the scripts and continue with the marking. So the panels will mark. And there are a number of the things that I just want to address, maybe 2 or 3 things. For instance, where a candidate fails to answer the compulsory question. There's a reason why it's called compulsory question. You're supposed to answer it. It's a must. You answer the compulsory question. Now, where a student does not answer compulsory question, that student scores an automatic 0. And as you know, a 0 is a mark, right? Yeah. So in other examination bodies, I'm told if you do not answer a compulsory question, you can't pass that paper. But for us, we'll give you a 0 and give you a benefit of doubt that you'll perform better in other. But you see now your chances have reduced of passing that paper because you are now working with 40, is it? So it's important that you try as much as possible at least to answer the compulsory question. Where a candidate answers more than 5 questions, a marker shall mark the first 5, including the compulsory question. So don't waste your time answering an extra question, because that question will not be marked. Instead, the marker has instructions to cancel that question. Now, some students, what they do is that when I used to mark, you find a student has answered very well the extra question, right? You find the student has done the 6 questions, but the last question, the student has answered very well. Actually, as that student, if you mark that question, you'll discover the student has scored at 8 out of 10. But the other question, the student has scored at 2, at 3. So we will mark in the order they appear. So we will not actually go into that last question, even though you might have scored very well in that question. So don't waste time attempting a question and knowing very well that that question will not be marked. Instead, use that time well on the other 5 questions. A number of these things do not have mentioned them. For instance, no single marker can mark an entire script alone. A marker only marks one question. There is an internal moderator who also checks on the quality of marking. Now, once the script has been marked, the marker returns those scripts to council. Now, council have staff who are checkers. The work of a checker is now to go through the entire script and ensure that, one, the script is marked. Is that okay? All paragraphs are marked. And number 2, the work of a checker is also to ensure that the marks on the booklet or the marks in the booklet is the marks that is on the cover of that booklet. That there is correct transfer of marks. Is that okay? And if there is any issue, the checker is supposed to return that script to the marker to correct. So that we have whatever is transferred on the cover of the booklet is what is actually in the booklet. Now, once the checkers have ascertained that we have the true scores, the next thing is that the marks will be entered by the data entry officers. Then the marks will also go through the verification process. We have other officers that verify those marks. Then there is first verification, then there is the second verification, then there is the manual verification. I think with this election thing, we now started insisting on backup. We have a manual system of backing up our things, right? So even as we have one where we also verify manually that whatever is in the system is what the student actually scored. Now, once the marking is complete, when the markers are leaving the venue, we have another team that is coming to the venue. We call them moderators. Now, the work of the moderator now is to sample what the markers have marked. So a moderator will come in, we call it the quality assurance process. The moderator will come in, for instance, out of, let me say, this year we might be administering an exam to maybe 1,500 students. Out of that, we have a sampling framework. So out of the 1,500 scripts, a moderator might sample maybe 350 of those scripts or 400 scripts and go through them. What he'll be doing is to mark. He will actually is the second marker. He will go through them and ascertain whether, one, the paper was properly marked. Is that okay? And number 2, whether the markers actually adhered to the marking guide. And after that, the moderator will write a report, and that report is supposed to indicate whether marking was actually done and whether marking was quality. The quality of marking is what is expected of the markers. And once the moderation process has been done, there is a process of processing the marks. or processing of examination results. So for the first time candidates, we capture both the oral project and the written examination components. All these are factored in calculating the final score. So if you scored, for instance, 13 in orals, 10 in the project, and you scored 20 in the exams, we calculate that, and that will give us a percentage of 100. For students who are resitting, we only consider one component. It's very important to understand that we only consider the examination component. Because when you sit for the exam for the first time, we say the written component, the oral component and the project component have already been spent. And therefore you cannot benefit on those components when you are now resitting. I believe that no one here will resit, right? We will all pass to the first sitting so that we do not have to fight to score a 30. And it's important to note that put in more effort so that you do not come back, because the statistics show that resits is not so favorable to candidates. Is that okay? It's better you sit when you hear with your colleagues. At least you can share information in groups and you can prepare yourself adequately. But when you're doing a resit, you are all alone, is it? Yeah, and most of the times you will not have time to adequately prepare. And what we have seen is that students who fail an ATP unit, some of them end up doing that unit 3, 4, 5 times. So it's important that if it's possible and you prepare adequately and pass this examination once. So after that, then the other thing that then once we have processed results, the next thing is releasing them, right? So we release the results. Now, due to data protection laws, nowadays candidates are requested to access their results in the candidate portal. We no longer publish those results. Sometimes back what we used to do is we'll publish them on our website. Nowadays we no longer do that. We believe that the results are individual, is it? And therefore you can access those results on the candidate portal. And immediately we release results, then we have the provisional. You can access also your provisional transcript. Now, the last component I'd like to address before I can call the CEO. There's been questions on why candidates do not perform well in, you've heard of those questions, yeah? In ATP 107 and ATP 108. That's in the conveyancing paper and the commercial transaction paper. And we asked the ones who mark why students, although let me state it from the beginning that I said there's been concerns out there, but if you look at statistics, those concerns, statistics can answer those concerns, because if you look at statistics for candidates who are sitting for those papers for the first time is different from those who are sitting. Because those who are sitting for the first time, you find we have pass rates up to 60% in those papers. Even the times when you have 70 and 80% for those who are sitting for the first time in those papers. But those who are sitting, we've had situations where we've had very low percentages in those two papers. Now, we asked markers why, and markers gave us some of the reasons. For instance, that some students, there is failure on the part of the candidates or some candidates to appreciate or comprehensive basic conveyancing procedures and commercial transaction concepts. Now, here, what happens is this. Either a student does not know the concepts. So what the student does is this, because I've seen it happen. A student, for instance, let me take mergers in commercial transaction. A question is asked on mergers. A student is supposed to apply the knowledge that you learned in class on the scenario that you've been given. But what happens is a student writes everything he knows about mergers and expects that the marker will look for answers from what he has written. The student has failed to apply. Is that okay? So you might write everything. In fact, you'll come to us and say that I know so much about mergers, but you failed to apply. That's why you fail. Another scenario is where a student knows nothing about that topic. So what the student does, he rewrites the question. Yes, they do that. You rewrite the question. The other situation is where you will find even a student mixing concepts. It's commercial transaction, but now he brings in even probate administration in commercial transaction. You can easily see that this student does not even understand the difference between commercial transactions and probate. The question is whether that student should pass. If you follow the marking scheme, the student will not pass. The other issue is interpretation of the question. You might, as some students leave the examination very confident that they have passed the exam. But the problem is, how did you interpret the question? Because we have found that there's a problem also when it comes to interpretation of the question. And that's why we try as much as possible to make the task very clear so that it does not have several tasks within one question. So it's very important that you read and reread the question before you start answering it. One of the things that I've noted when I'm supervising exams is that some students, the moment they get a question paper, you start writing. It's important that you take even 5 or 10 minutes to try and appreciate and read through the questions and understand them properly. Because there is the issues of a student, you came in, you looked at the question, and the first thing you saw up there is something that maybe something that looks like a charge. Then later on you discover, no, this question was actually on discharge, right? So it's important that you read through the narration before you decide on what to answer. Then there's the issue of basic analytical and application skills that most of the students lack. And in this particular case, I had denoted earlier that in most cases, the application of IRAC, most of when you're answering the questions. Now, allow me also to say this. Even in the application of IRAC, I think my friend Dudley will look at that. But what I know is that even in the application of IRAC, what I normally see students do is this. A student will say, this is the facts. Then we write facts from the question. Then down there we list the laws. Then will come something else. Then the analysis will be like this, a very lean paragraph. Yet that's where the answers are supposed to be, right? Because of misapplication of the IRAC. So we need to actually learn how to apply IRAC itself, right? And I think you have 1 month. If you don't know, you can actually sit in groups and try at least to appreciate how to answer those particular questions. So that in most of the cases you find a student who does that might end up using 2 booklets and still fail, right? Because most markers are not interested in those laws that you've listed. Most of them are not interested in those facts that you've listed. Most of them are interested, how did you apply? Is that okay? How do you apply that law to those facts? Yeah? So the way you approach answering those questions also matters. So the issue of maybe teaching methodology, in this particular case, Our assumption is that the teaching methodology should concentrate more on exam-taking skills and techniques, and that's where maybe you can learn IRAC, you can learn how to apply more and stuff like that, or how to answer questions that are tested in the higher levels of taxonomy. Then there's an issue of, especially for students who've been in the system for the longest, most of them fail to appreciate the changing nature of law. So you find, for instance, a student has been in the system from 2015, for instance. The laws have changed, right? If you look at, we've seen a situation where a student will be quoting the Company Act, used to be CAP 486. Yes, 486. Yeah, you find a student quoting that, yet the law changed a long time ago. A student still quoting the Bankruptcy Act. We still have it. We have Insolvency Act, right? So you find a student is yet to familiarize himself with the current developments in the law. There's a year students fail conveyancing because of questions on conversion, because the majority of them had never read them or anything on conversions. There's a year, the same year also, students failed conveyancing because of sectional properties. When I talked to a number of them, they told me, oh, this area we didn't read because it was new. We believed that no one in their sane mind can set a question on it. But we did set a question on it in our sane mind. So areas, the contemporary areas, as long as those areas are on your course syllabus, we can set a question on it. So it's important you also look at those contemporary areas in the practice of law, and also, prepare for them. Is that okay? And lastly, there was also a concern that most high fail rates in those two subjects are noted, especially among the candidates who are taking the subject. And this can also point towards preparation, how these students approach examinations or preparations before they sit for these papers, and also the issue of attitude. When you came to KSL, you were told that people fail commercial transaction and conveyancing, right? Yeah, it's attitude sometimes. These are papers that you have so many people who passed them in their first sitting, so there is nothing scary about commercial transaction. In fact, today, commercial transaction, when I sat for these exams, or when the CEO sat for them, commercial transaction had several components, including sale of goods, negotiable instruments, hire purchase, then whatever you're doing was part of it. But some of those topics were removed because then there was also argument that people are failing commercial. So what we have today is something that you can easily, read, understand, and apply, and pass, and be a happy citizen. I think that's what I can say on setting, marking, and some of the areas or things that we think constitute or contribute to fail rates in commercial transactions and conveyancing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zadok, for that. So that's what Zadok does at the council to ensure we have a good examination question, like the papers you'll be sitting for in November but don't ask him, because even as at now, he doesn't know. So, yeah. So there's some things that have also changed, especially when he was talking about commercial transactions. During our time, it used to have 9 subunits in them, and we could read all that. So the way he was talking about attitude, please let nobody lie to you that commercial transaction conveyancing are difficult. In fact, Contrary to that popular opinion, when we were submitting the results to KSL to award the best candidate, people had 80s, including 89s. And you will see them when KSL will be having the award ceremony. The same units, commercial transactions, conveyancing. So let nobody lie to you. Read for yourself and prepare sufficiently and sit for that exam confidently so that you can pass. The other thing is, and this one we have seen a lot, don't expect questions that will ask you to regurgitate something. At this level, that's why it's called an advocate's training program. It is expected at this level, you'll be able to analyze and apply the knowledge that you have received over this period. So we won't tell you to list the 2 ways, you can initiate a succession matter. Testate, intestate, no. We'll give you a scenario. So it is upon you to apply that scenario into answers. Then you put your answers. And basically, this is what the real world is all about. When you have your law firm, a client will come with a very long story. Oh, my husband died. He had not written a will. Then the brother wants to take the land that was left. I have 3 children. They cannot go to school because my mother-in-law has already gone to the bank and they want to freeze the accounts and all that. They'll come with a story. So it is upon you as an advocate to deduce from all this the client is telling you what are the legal issues. And that is what we expect you to do during the examination. Now, I'm here to talk about the changes that we have enacted in this November exam. Now, as a council, for us, we are committed to continuous improvement. And especially when it comes to the release of the results, and this is what happened when you people came to Occupy. I'm seeing some faces here who came to Occupy. So for us, it's just to make the examination better. It's on a light note. To take the examination process to improve. And I've been having discussions even with individual candidates, and there are things that you're telling us to do. And for us is to take that and process it and see how we can all better improve the process. So the first thing that the first change that we are going to have is the examination paper and booklet. Currently, you're used to have an A4 paper with the question, the normal printing paper, and then you're given an examination booklet. Now we have moved away from that. Now the question paper will still be the same answer booklet. It is exactly the same like what you did in your Form 4. You are given a paper, it was the question paper, and you still put your answers there. So don't expect in this examination series to have a separate question paper and a separate booklet. Now, also the size of the paper will change. You're used to A4, now we'll have A3 papers, bigger ones. They will be color-coded per unit. So each unit will have a different color. So if you see different colors in that exam, please don't get worried. Don't think too much. Just remember your Form 4 exam. That's exactly what you will be having in this examination series. Now, the other issue is the release, how we'll be releasing results. Previously, and that is the problem we had during Occupy, when we released the results, they used to update the previous transcript, and especially for those who did receipts. The first time candidates, we never had problems, but for those who are receipting, how the system was before, if we sat for the November examination and failed, then you receipt in April. When we release the result, it would update the same transcript, so that if you failed again in April, it will show, according to you, it will show a fail, which was the same fail you got in November. So most candidates would say, oh, my marks did not change because you did not mark And you've heard what Zadok has said, like the marking process is so intensive, including checkers, verifiers, and even moderators. But then to avoid that, we have changed how we release our results. So we will be having a link for the first time candidate. If you now you'll be sitting the exams in November, you click that link, you see the results of the exams that you sat in November. Those who will be doing resits, because they'll be there, they will only click the link for receipts only, and it will only show the ATP unit that they registered for receipt, and they'll only see the result only for that unit. So for instance, if they had passed the 9 and it's only ATP 108 that was remaining, so they'll go there and click, and they'll see only results for ATP 108, so that they wouldn't say that my paper was not marked. We're even improving further. You will be able to access your marks per question that you attempted. So that you go to your system, you see I did question 1, which was compulsory. I got 5 out of 20. Okay, you are clever people. You got 15 out of 20. Then question 2, you got 5 out of 10. Question 3, you got 8. We want transparency in the system so that you are satisfied with the marks that you see, because those are the questions that you are tempted. So it's just to ensure this Occupy CLE taught us a lot of things, because you know people are saying we don't mark. So we want to show you the marks that you got per question in your student portal. And that's why, and that's not even the reason, but issues of data protection. Of course, we cannot put that in public because your results are personal. You go to your own portal, you see how you performed. On that same examination booklet, it has security features. It will have a serial number that will be gotten after scanning a QR code. So if you see the person who will be coming to scan a QR code, it's just to ensure that that is our paper, because if it's not our paper, the QR code will not produce a serial number. And ensure, the way that she has said, ensure that you sign the attendance form, because once the paper is scanned, the QR code is scanned, it will produce a serial number for that paper that will be written in the attendance register. So if you are ever to come and say, oh, I sat for this exam, but I cannot see my marks, we will only go to the scripts and scan the QR code, so that we don't have any foreign material coming into the examination room. Deferment shall not be allowed unless in exceptional cases. You know, there are some people who get unwell, when we get those medical reports, but you forfeit the money, because as you have heard, we have invested, we have utilized that money to print, to hire a venue, to hire invigilators, to engage markers and all that. So let's ensure that we don't defer. Once we register, we sit for the examinations. Now, this time you have to be very keen on looking at your examination card. It will have a QR code and it will have your photo, and that QR code also will be scanned because it will be connected to your examination booklet. So ensure that you look at the venue that will be indicated in your examination card. Don't go to a venue that is not in the examination card, because we will be printing scripts according to the number of candidates in a particular examination center. So if you go to an examination center that is not in your examination card, you might not find your script there. You might be told to go to where your script is. So please just have a look at your examination card when they are ready for printing. This time again, the changes that we are implementing, it's not free sitting. We will arrange students. It is us who will have that discretion. So you'll find your number on the table. So you will not sit with your friend. We will ensure that it is us who will determine where each candidate is. And it is also to help us, because we have serialized the scripts, it will also help us in arranging them, because they have a serial number that must follow a specific order. So the first day of exam, please come early so that you look for your desk. After that, you can come 5 minutes before, because you'll already know where you'll be seated. So just ensure that you note that. This time around, again, we won't be having examination centers outside of Nairobi for financial reasons, which we will not ventilate here. We don't have a budget to have examinations outside of Nairobi. So we must come and sit for examinations here. When it comes, once we finish with our examinations and pass, and we are praying and hoping you will pass in the first instance. After that, the process is that you do your pupillage, and then after that, when you finish, we get all the names that have been forwarded from KSL that you actually completed your pupillage. After that, we also verify on our end whether you are ready, and we certify whether you have met all the requirements to be admitted as an advocate. And then we gazette you. Since inception, when CLE started working separately from KSL, that was in 2015, we have gazetted a total number of 13,282 candidates that have been enrolled in the role of advocates. This year alone, the year 2024, we have gazetted 1,606 advocates, which is the second, actually, yeah, maybe third highest. You don't look at the prior, the third highest number of candidates that have been gazetted. In fact, the second highest number of candidates that have been gazetted. Right now, on the website, we have a total of 817 candidates that will be gazetted by Friday, and then subsequently they'll be admitted. So the reason I'm showing you these numbers is that there have been that notion that candidates don't leave CLE. They do, a lot of them. The few who remain in the system, maybe for lack of preparation, they are the ones who say CLE does not clear candidate. We do. And in fact, it is our joy when all of you finish and move on with other things in life. So we are expecting that this lot, since we'll be doing the exam for the first time, do your best. During this first sitting, it's very important, because if you already have marks for the 40%, you'll only be required to have 60%. And this 60%, you're supposed to get it from 5 questions, surely. Is that so difficult? And remember, it is true, it is easy to pass. Set your mind, prepare. Because if you don't, that's now when you start doing resits. And remember, resits, you lose your orals and project marks. So you'll be looking at 30 out of 60. 30 out of 60, which we don't want. Please prepare and sit for this examination. Pass all of them in the first instance. So at this point, I would want us to prepare our questions and have maybe a 20 minutes question and answer session. But before we do that, I would like to invite one of the very good advocates that have been working with CLE. Now he's your teacher, but he has been our marker. He has been marking the ATP examinations for a number of years, Mr. Dudley Ochiel. We have invited him here to just come and give his experience as a marker, somebody who marks your scripts. What is it, those nuggets of wisdom that he can give you as you prepare for the upcoming examination. So please give a round of applause to Mr. Dudley Ochio.
Thank you so much, CEO. Apologies, I've come late. I had a court session. I've worked for CLE as an examiner for 8 years, since 2015. So out of those 13,000 you've gazetted, I think I stopped marking last year in April. So I've marked up for about 12,000 students. So I've seen a lot of scripts. I've seen many students pass, and I've seen some fail. I can tell you why the ones who fail, fail. The ones who do resits fail because they don't study. They wait until the last minute because they are working, they're doing pupillage, or they're mature students, they've joined KSL, a little bit later on in their careers. They wait for the last 2 weeks to the exam, and then they try to get all the material that you have covered in 1 year into those 2 weeks. Then the law has changed, but they are not aware of it because they don't attend classes. They do not look at the course outline. They do not know what's in the course outline. They use their old notes. And when they come to the exam, they find that they cannot answer questions. So they leave the compulsory question, for example, blank, or they overwrite on one question. You can see clearly that a section of the question has 3 marks. Why are you writing an entire page or 2 pages for? Why are you spending 2 pages or 3 pages? And sometimes you don't even know the answer, but you're busy filling 3 pages for those 3 marks. Then you lose time to look for the 10 marks in the other questions. So that division of time. A section has 3 marks. You can see you've been asked identify, and you can see the marks are 3. Why can't you just conclude that this one is looking for 3 points? Identify 3 points. You list those 3 points, you get your 3 marks. Someone writes an essay on an identify question worth 3 marks, a 2-page, 3-page, 4-page essay. Then they lose time on the other sections. So allow the number of marks to guide you on what the examiner wants. If it is explained and you can see it's 6 points, it's telling you explain. You quickly know that that's a question that wants you to maybe identify 3 points and then explain those 3 points for your 6 marks. Allow the number of marks to guide you on the approach that the examiner is looking for. Then there's also the issue of ambiguity, and I'm happy CLE is improving. I'll request them to maybe conduct one more check this time just for ambiguity. Just look out for the kind of questions that are likely to have 2 approaches, because it's possible to answer a question in 2 ways. So this goes to CLE and also goes to you. If it's possible to answer a question in 2 ways, one that is consistent with the number of marks and is consistent with the unit you are sitting, and another that is inconsistent with the number of marks and is also inconsistent with what they're examining in that question, I should easily tell that the answer the examiner is looking for is the one that falls more within the number of marks and also is more relevant to the unit they're testing, because some units are likely to be cross-cutting. So maybe just check that issue of ambiguity. That's for CLE. So the other thing is I've already mentioned the issue of leaving questions blank and then confusion. The question is about a legal opinion, but someone finds themselves writing a demand letter. Happens all the time in legal writing, for example. You ask for a legal opinion, but then you write a really nice demand letter, but the question is not about demand letter. Maybe that bit of rush. So as you do your first review of the questions, when you're selecting the one whose mark allocation you think is favorable to you, also just note out specifically what you're required to do, so that when you come to write it, yes, you know the answer, but then you find that instead of having it in one format, you have it in a different format, and you lose the entire marks for that section. There's something CLE used to do. We used to give them the best and worst papers. I don't know how that can still continue, because it also enables them to understand the approach to questions. Maybe you could seek out their consent, have a part in the paper where they sign and say that I consent to my data, subject to the appropriate amount of anonymization, obviously, being used to improve the exam process. Because when you see how the best performing student answered the question, and you see how the worst performing student answered the question, it can help them to improve the way that they approach the exam. There's something that I've always sung to the class I teach, class G: please use the course outline, because the first thing that the examiner is given in their examination bundle is a course outline. And once they have the course outline in front of them, they feel entitled to set from any part of that course outline. So if you haven't yet laid your hands on a copy of your course outline, please get all 9 copies of the course outline, check which areas you've studied, check what you need to do, and use the course outline to prepare. You can use the exam questions after you're done with the course outline, because the exam questions might not repeat, but the course outline is consistent. So take the course outline, check how far you've gone in preparing, and use the course outline to study. Form those study groups, attempt questions, look at every part, every word in the question, because the words have meaning. The examiners do not waste words, and maybe there are points they're looking for. So just take your time to read the questions. The other thing I wanted to say is on the issue of deferral. There's that window to defer, right? That window also has a meaning. Between now and November, when the time to defer ends, introspect. Ask yourself, how well am I prepared for this unit? Especially if you are sitting it for the first time. You know, you already have these marks from projects, and you have your marks from orals. And if you feel within yourself that you're not ready for a particular unit, you know, the first time you'll be able to use your marks is next year, June, after orals, right? That's the first time you'll use your marks, even if you pass or don't pass, at the end of pupillage. So if you feel yourself that I'm not ready for this unit, I haven't had time to make the best use of this exam, to make the best use of my project marks, and what do you call them? And the orals marks. I think you can preserve them there and sit the units that you're ready for, and then get those additional 3 months between maybe January, December, and April, when they do the specials. What are they called? They call specials. Yeah, there's a series that they do in April, so that you just get ready for that exam, and you do it in your best state of mind, and you pass it. So those are all of those are avenues that are available to you. I've seen the exam improve from when we began it in 2015. The days we used to have, for example, half marks, those are no longer there. With mark and you get someone has a half mark. You know, they've tried to improve the process. And as I tell you, I can also confirm, your paper is not touched by one person. At least 4 people, 1, 2, 3, 4 people to touch your paper. So how is it possible for 1, 2, 3, 4 people who do not know you, have no beef against you, to conspire to fail you? Or how is it possible that 1, 2, 3, 4 people, your paper will pass through them and they do not mark it, all of them, and they're adults, they're professionals, advocates, your senior colleagues? So CLE is doing its part. Yes, it's not perfect, it's improving, and it's possible to improve further, but it's also possible for the students to improve their approach, to do their best, to prepare extremely well for the exam, and to pass it. And I also tell my students the P word. There are 2 P words. The first is preparation, and the second is panic. When you prepare well, you'll never panic. And when you prepare well for this CLE exam, you'll pass it. CLE never disappoints the prepared. That's something I've seen working with CLE for those how long? 5 years? 8 years, 8 years. Those 10, 11, 12,000 students whose papers have been privileged to mark. So prepare for the exam. There's a lot of time between now and when the exams begin. If you don't feel you are ready in 1 or 2 units, they're giving you problems, you think that the content is too wide, and you're not able to cover it adequately between now and the time when you'll be sitting in exam, you're allowed to defer. There's a window. That window is there for you to use so that you're also strategic, because you need to pass this exam to move on to the next phase of your career. It's easy for you to pass it the first time because you've been in class all along. You have the benefit of your group works, you have the benefit of your orals and projects. Now, those who come to resit it, first, they do not have those benefits that you have. And these days, you have other things we did not have in my time. We never had the recordings. You have your class recordings, you can refer to them. In our times, you had to attend class, so if you missed class, you had to look at Joshua Okayo's very bad handwriting, for example, for you to know what happened in class. But you have the virtual recordings. In fact, you have recordings for classes before you. So you have a lot of material for you to use. Make the best use of them, and I wish you well. I hope you pass, and that this time next year we'll be attending your admission ceremonies. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dudley. You've heard from Amaka. So those people who say we don't mark, you have evidence kwa karatas that we actually mark your scripts, and not one person, not 2 people, 5 people. So I think we've come to the end of our discussion this morning, but we cannot leave before we hear from you. If those who have questions, comments, clarifications that you may require. So the class president, I think he'll help us in taking up the comments from the candidates. So who will start us off? So you'll have number 1, 2, this side, 3, the lady here, this side, 4. We want to take the first round of 5. 5, the gentleman behind there. So we can give them the microphone. Yeah, thanks.
I have 2 questions. The first question is about the help that you guys told us is available for examination. As of today morning, there's no communication about disbursement or anything about it. When you check the help portal, it tells you verify, and you apply the first day you open. So we need clarification on that because we have a deadline here, and you're saying you cannot extend the period. And for some of us, that is the only option of financing. Then the second question about the security features and everything about the scripts. There's an aspect that I've failed a unit, and I'm sure, to a certain extent, I'm convinced that I did my best. Why is it that I can access that script, and I have to go maybe to seek a court order or something of the sort for me to get that script? Because that script is, as much as it's a property of the CLE, I also wait for it and I work for it. So why is it available to me so that I'm convinced I indeed have failed? I'm ready to read mine is a registration on financing while making your payments. Accept the portal does not reflect the payments immediately with the level of tax. Yes, some of us are to get responses from finance. What is the way forward of that? and you find it requires a lot of time. So is there a way the 3 hour period negotiable? And some minutes for time, because in some minutes, somebody should not be
Okay. All right. There was let's please be respectful to those who had lifted their hands, so that now for those who had not, we'll do now a second round. Please, if you don't mind. There was nothing, this lady here. So you'll be number 1 in the second round.
Good afternoon. My name is Esther Nico, and my question is probably related to Mr. Kennedy. So there is an instance where someone has paid fees in excess, and so the money is with the finance. So the finance has made the transaction, and so it is now in the CAD accounts. How do you proceed from that point? Because you said during the registration and actually, yes, registration, that you have to have the amounts there. Now it is within. How do I proceed from that point? Thank you.
Number 4 was there.
Good afternoon. My name is Nico, and I had a question. Now that you have less than 6 days for the registration period to end, and for one reason or another, your application is rejected within the last day, will you be allowed to state that the application is being sent back?
Okay. Thank you. We'll answer that. Then, who was number 4 here, and then there was 5.
However, we try to contact the finance department, and none of them are getting back to us. So we have the deadline actually, that is up to us. We are not getting paid for the examination.
All right. So the last person on this side was it the lady in blue? Okay, then let's have the gentleman. We finish that round, and we do round 2.
My name is Okomo. I direct the question to Mr. Church. Mr. Church says that the application can be rejected. However, CD has already received my money. So
all right. So thank you very much. Let me answer those that I can quickly, and then Churchill will answer the rest. Help. In fact, we forgot to say that in our presentation. We have the loan that we facilitate our students. In fact, that loan, just for clarity, it is CLE that has set aside money from its budget to ensure that we give a loan to our candidates for them to sit for that examination. So that money that you're applying from HELP, it is CLE's money. What we have done, because we don't have the infrastructure and the resources and the human resources, especially to manage it, so we have given that money to HELP and told them, since you already have an infrastructure, you know, for defaulters, we don't know how we'll come after you. But HELP, they know how they do it. So that's why we gave that money. It is CLE's money that has been given to HELP to administer students who, and that money is only used for registration of exam. You cannot get our loan to pay school fees at KSL, you know that. So you should clap for us at least. Now, what happens once you apply, we receive those applications at CLE, then we forward them to help. In fact, yesterday I had a pile, those who registered, those who applied late, I forwarded them yesterday to help. So on their end, they are still processing. So that's something that I'll take it up with help to check how far they are. And this year we have the highest number of students who have applied for that loan. So we'll get back. Otherwise, or including those who applied as late as yesterday, we forwarded them to help so that help can process. But I'll follow up with them to check where they are with that. Now, access to the scripts. There is no examination body that gives scripts to candidates, all the way from NEC, CASNEB, everywhere. In fact, they even quote decisions. There are students during Occupy CLE, they took us to CAJ, and we responded with our exam policy, best practices from all examination bodies all over the world, and we added cases that have been decided, the jurisprudence that has been developed in this republic on access. Because the point is simple, even if we gave you your scripts, you don't have the marking scheme. Like, what will you do with it? The most we can do is what now we are doing. We are showing you your marks per question. And that one, even now, you can access a PDF. Those who sat last year, they can come to our office and access a PDF format of their marks per question. But now you guys will be lucky, you'll be the first ones who will be accessing those per question marks in the system. So that's why we don't give marks. Now, in terms of registration, let me say something here. Remember now, we in all government services are on Citizen. You are aware of that, including CLE examination registration. That's why we've given you this brochure. Please take time to read it. Because what has happened, especially the green part, the middle part, this is the registration process. Please, let's go through it, all of us, because there's a step that students skip and you will find your name not in the list. So allow me to take you through it slowly, the green part, registration by first time candidates. That's the yellow part. You have to go in the system and create your account in our website. You create your own account. Then you'll enter your KSL number, fill the biodata, you upload the photo and all the documents that Churchill talked about. Then you select the units that you will be sitting for in November. Then you make payment. After you make payment, remember the payment, you're going to eCitizen. It will give you a code. Those who have tried to do that, it gives you that eCitizen code that you pay. Now, that's not the end. You have to come back to the portal to complete or to submit your application. Because if you pay on eCitizen and assume that you have completed, you have not completed. You have now to come back in the portal for you to submit for that transaction to be complete. We had a lot of problems when we were doing remark. Candidates went, they even paid on eCitizen, but they never came to complete the transaction. So on our end, we did not see that they had applied for remark, and the deadline had lapsed. The remark was done and the process completed, and there's nothing we could do apart from refunding their money. So please be careful, go back and complete that process that now needs to be completed, because now everything is on eCitizen. And remember, eCitizen and us, it's separate, only that we have linked somewhere where in terms of the money coming. Now, I think it's Kinodia who asked about money. Now, if you don't complete the process, that money hangs somewhere. It doesn't come to us, because what happens is eCitizen, once they collect the money for CLE, they do their accounts, they reconcile, then they send that money to us after maybe a day or two with now the names of the candidate. If you did not complete the process, we will have the money, but we will not have you in the database as having registered. So that money will be there hanging somewhere. Then you will write an email, say I paid on this date, can't see my name in the list of those who have registered. Now we have to go manually and look for the code that you used to pay through e-citizens. Please just ensure that that process is very, you're very keen on that process and that you finish. Now, arising out of that, if your application is rejected, it can be rejected for many reasons, i.e. you did not upload all the required documents. So if we don't find a photo of you, we will reject it because it could be a robot who is registering to sit for the examination. So there are all those reasons. If you don't upload all the documents that are required, we will reject you on our end. So once you are rejected, if it's a minor thing, we are not malicious. We will give you an opportunity to rectify. So if you didn't upload your Form 4 certificate, for instance, which we encourage you to do to avoid all that, we will tell you now, please upload your Form 4 certificate so that your application can be completed. But not do this closer to the examination, because the reason why we have deadlines is also to allow us on our end to prepare now for the examination, printing of scripts, and there's so much that goes on after the deadline is closed. Remember, the deadline is fast and the examination starts on the 14th. So that's 1 month, slightly a month and a week for us to finalize everything and be ready for you guys when you come to sit for the examination. So the summary is ensure you upload all the documents that are required. Esther asked about excess fees. If you pay registration of examination fee to us and it's excess, we always refund if you ask your colleagues. So because that's the information is in our system. So we'll see you are supposed to pay 45,000. By the way, now I can say this here, I hope you don't do that. Some candidates, what they do, they tell their brother to pay, then they go to their sister and their uncle. So you find that in your portal you have excess money. So please, we are not encouraging you to do that. Don't do that. But in the event that your parent paid extra inadvertently, we will refund it. But don't go fleecing your relatives. And we have excess money to refund you. Are we together? Yeah. So those who paid to KSL, I think now Dr. Konuche can respond to that, because that's why I started by saying KSL and CLE, we are separate legal entities. By law, we are body corporates separately. So if you paid to KSL, please follow up with KSL to be able to sort you out on that. And also, but even for us, the refunds that we do, we minus bank charges, which can be very expensive. So if we're refunding you, we refund you minus the charges, because you see, CLE, there's a budget that we have been given by the government, but it did not include refunding, incurring costs to refund candidates any money. Munele asked about time. Unfortunately, it's not possible. Even, you see, whatever we do at CLE, we benchmark with other comparable institutions and even best practices globally. And 3 hours, it is considered sufficient time for a professional examinations. So it's just a matter of playing around with that time. And as Dudley has said, if you see a question has 3 marks, clearly you don't need to spend an hour there, probably 10 minutes, and then spend the bulk of the time in a question that will give you more marks. So that one we may not be able to do it now, but as a reform issue, probably going forward, if you write to us and justify and tell us maybe the New York bar, they give 4 hours for 5 questions, we may consider. We are not rigid. We may consider the comments that we may receive from you. So Chirchir, would you have anything else to add? And as we do this, I don't know who will help us get maybe 2 questions from the online viewers. I don't know how to do it, but the ICT person can help us.
Okay, there is a candidate who pointed out that she paid excess fees to CLE but can't proceed because the money is not available. If that is the case, kindly write an email to us so that we check from our end and make that money available to you so that you register. We push that money to your portal so that now you can commence the process of registration. So just do an email. Any rejection of application that is done, probably towards the end of the registration period, will not tie you with the technicalities. If we are requesting for a form for certificate, once you submit, we'll still have you registered because you did it earlier on before the deadline. So don't worry if the registration is declined on the very last day. I think those are the only issues that are pending. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we do the second and final round because we need to be out of here by 1 if you allow us. So we'll start with the number 1, the good lady there. Number 2, number 3, this side, number 4 and 5, and we finish. We will have another webinar, I'll announce it. All right, okay. Sorry, I don't think we can hear you. Oh, when I'm uploading, it brings an error.
We try and see the documents uploaded. We cannot see the documents because there is an error. Also, we try to communicate by email.
Which email did you use? And by the way, that email has an S at the end. We find students writing examination at cle.or.ke. It's examinations. So if you don't add the S, it will not reach us. So just check if it has an S at the end, and those are things that we will address, and which we actually respond to. We have two people who are dedicated to responding to emails only. So if it hasn't been responded to, we will check on that, but also check whether you added S at the end. But in terms of the error, Churchill will answer that in case it shows an error. Yes, ma'am? Sorry?
I'm reading the question.
Oh, from the virtual platform. Okay.
The first question is, can you defer 1 minute now if you have already finished the registration? Second one is, so what happens if the health loan has not been disbursed by the deadline, which is in a few days? Now that we have combined question and answer booklets, will I be penalized if I skip some major points to use in answering the question on either side of the question paper? Will that be regarded as still in the exam? Can one still apply a health loan though past the deadline? Do you have two approaches on how to probate, especially with respect to section 3.5? In addition to the rest of the work performed, the city can one register for the units if they are ready to do and come and please register for the other units instead of registering the requirement? Can the health application be rejected, and how soon will they let us know, at least before the registration deadline? Will there be a workflow or a particular what are applicable in the exam.
I think those are good enough so that we give people in the room. But I don't know if we had access, our people would be answering on the platform. I don't know. Yeah, let's go this side. Had you lifted your hand? Oh yes, I remember her, yes.
Yes, my name is Juliet Rehab and I have 2 questions. The first question is, if at all by the time health is sorting out the issue is past the registration dates, now what do we do now that it's not our fault? And the second question is, for those people who will be having the examination at KFL, most of the writing pads are broken. How are they supposed to do their paper with a broken paper?
All right, let's go this side. We had three people this side. We start with the good lady here.
So my name is Amina Fulani, and you talked about the mode of payment of the e-citizen. And for example, for those students that are being participated by an organization, when you report the finance department, you are told you are given an account number and whatnot. So after now making the payment, it requires you to go to the
back to the portal.
Okay, in the email it was saying to go back to the institution, I think to bring out the copy. So is that still the case? And then follow up to that question is, if you are paying the bank, I did not know of the 50 bond thing. So the amount is like 45K. So now the 50 bond and the 50 shilling, with my application still pending on the
All right. Thank you. There was a last question at the. You've moved from up there, or you're. Okay.
Yeah. So my question was, I had a similar question. The one that was asked.
Okay. Yeah. So the lady there. All right, let's listen to her.
My name is Charlie Kasti. I have 2 questions. One is whether you can affect someone who has an ID card. And the second question came up during one of our discussions in class. You give samples of your work and they perform papers. And majority of the people, majority of the students are more than like the average student, never give samples. So you can have samples, 1 or 2 of like the average student samples.
Okay. Thank you very much. The final one, the gentleman at the back, that's the final question.
My name is Victor Villa. So my question is about the private education sectors. So in case maybe you have a special need for the field, is there any possibility for those people, for example, some of us say you can go to find the same your center is in the woman. So for real benefits, Is there any consideration to start with the videos?
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll start with the last one, which is easy. This year we are hoping to have only 2 centers, one of them being here, but I won't answer the desk question. Yeah, so we'll have 2 centers, one being care, but just be assured that because we'll be now distributing people, we cannot put people where they don't have a writing, whatever, just that's that place to put the hand. So all right. But just be assured, I'm just giving you an assurance that you will be, majority will be in a very good examination center that we are working on. And the rest will be here, depending on where the system takes you. But just, you've been here for a whole year, good people. All right, okay, let's continue. Dr. Konucha is here. She will respond to that question in terms of the facility. But then in terms of special needs, we take care of special needs candidates. So if those that have special needs, like for instance, the examples that we have had before, we have had students who are visually impaired. We have computers that we give them. We in conjunction with the Kenya Society for the Blind. Yeah, so there is some computer softwares that we use for those particular candidates who are visually impaired. You may not see them here, but usually they sit in some of those rooms. We have those who have problems with nerves. They are not able to write. But then for us to accommodate those ones, we have to have medical reports, we have to verify. So this year I've actually seen an application of one candidate who has, it's actually she has a problem with nerves, so she's not able to write. So, but she can type, you know. So those are special accommodations that we give candidates who have special needs to ensure that we facilitate them in sitting for the examination. Now, the question on the errors, Chirchir will answer that. Then the HELB loan, I think it has been mentioned 3 times. Allow me to take this up and this afternoon check our social media pages. Once I talk to HELB, we will update on our social media platform on what they are doing on their end with regard to that HELB loan, because today is 25th. And you have until 1st. So that one I'm giving an undertaking. Immediately we leave here, I'll talk to them so that we give an update to you guys in the afternoon on what HELB doing with regard to those loan applications. Scribbling at the back, on the paper now, the paper we have developed, we have given a lot of space. And even if you have a big handwriting, we will give you extra papers that will be stapled. But now, when you're doing your rough work, please, as much as possible, do it at the back. We'll allow enough pages at the back for you to scribble and do your rough work in the script. So that one will be allowed, and it will not be considered cheating because clearly you're just writing your short notes. Marking scheme. There's a reason why these things are not given by all these institutions. So when it comes to the marking scheme, we cannot give candidates the marking scheme. What we can do, and this is what we have resolved going forward, is just be doing summaries. What in the specific units, why did students do very well? How did they answer the questions? And I like that young lady who has said now, instead of doing the best and the worst, we do even average. And We'll do the same way we do for dummy marking. You know, when you're doing dummy marking, we hide your identity. We actually hide so that the markers, they don't even know which paper they are marking. So even in terms of us giving feedback and showing the best, and we will never disclose who it was, so that we improve and assist those others that will be sitting for these papers. Online, there was some asked about clocks. Yes, we do. We will be having clocks everywhere in the room. But you're not allowed to come with your smart watches and all. Last year, we cancelled exam for how many candidates with smart watches?
Okay.
Yeah, they were think for. So if you come with a smartwatch,
Then master class. Oh yeah.
So please don't come with smartwatches. Don't come with phones in the examination room. This information you'll receive it in the guidelines. We actually have a guidelines which we will upload also on our website. They give you everything that you need to know when you're coming for the examinations. They give you the do's and the don'ts. Broken desks at KSL, that one I think Dr. Panuche will answer that. Then Amina, bank payments. Now, there was a government directive that all payments be made on eCitizen. So even for us, we are not receiving any payment through any other means. We no longer receive through our previous bank accounts and pay bill numbers due to that government directive. So everything is on eCitizen. And the eCitizen has a service fee of 50 bob when you're making that payment. So when you're paying the 45,000 for the 9 units, you must add 50 bob because the transaction it may go through, but that money will hang somewhere. It will not be complete. So ensure when you're paying on eCitizen, you have 45,000 and 50 bob. You must add that service fee for 50 bob, which is for eCitizen. But what comes to us is exactly what you have paid. Chelsea, I think you talked about abstract and ID. You see the problem with an abstract, it doesn't have your photo, and we want to verify that the person who registered is the one who is sitting for the examination. So please come with any other method of identification, a KSL ID, which majority of you come with, a passport, you know, the Kenyan passport, if you have it, but we must have something that tells us the person who is in our portal is the same person who is coming to sit for the examinations. Which was the last one? Yeah, people who want to defer units. Now, I should not be saying this here, it's internal, but you need to know finances, they are dwindling. Even KSL will tell you they got zero, as we got zero. So we are relying actually on the money that you're paying us, and it's not enough to do many examination series. So as at now, we'll see whether we'll have enough money to have another series. But what we are sure we will have is this one. So these are things that we are working with other quarters. We see whether we'll get money to have other examination series. So I will not say any further than that. So for me, I think allow me to summarize our outcome for today as we finish. We had said we'd be out of here by 1, it's 1:07. Number one, ensure you have that 50 bob when you're paying on eCitizen. Then be keen to check on the examination venue in your examination card, very critical. Number 3, ensure during the exam you sign up the register. For ATP 101, you can come with a penal code, but now we have become clever. We've realized people insert other things. So we have people going around the room, specifically going through that penal code to see whether you have inserted anything. If you have inserted, just as always, as we do, we cancel that exam. And you see, it's so unfortunate. Sometimes that penal code will only refer to maybe a certain crime when you're drafting the charge sheet. And then you put other things that will not be in the exam. And then we cancel the exam because of that. Please avoid such things. So we have people going around just because we've discovered that's what people do. So we'll be going around and looking at the pages of the penal code, whether you've added anything. For ATP 107, you are allowed to come with a scientific calculator, scientific. So it's not those calculators that you can put information inside. Yes, lastly, we will have a webinar the first week of November, just before your examination. And that one you can join, but mostly we are targeting those who are not in KSL. We have so many students out there who are doing resits and they don't have the benefit of having what we have had today. So we will just be on the lookout on our social media platform, on the website. We will be having a webinar on first week of November before you sit for the exam on the 14th of November. So thank you very much. We appreciate your time, your comments. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach to us. And also, if you have recommendations that you can help us with to improve the examination process. Otherwise, I would like to thank KSL for allowing us to come here today as well. And Mr. Daddy Ochiel, who's been our partner for many years, for agreeing to come this afternoon and just to share snippets of his experience marking the examinations. And my team from KSL, from CLE, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and I wish everybody a wonderful afternoon. And since I won't see you until during the exam, I wish you all the very best in your preparation and the very best in your examination. Thank you.
That marks the end of, as I called it, a rite of passage. I have after that, I hand you over and the next class comes in, okay? But as she says, if you have any other questions, please reach out to them. As for the desks, unfortunately, Sisi ndio tuko. But we normally do repairs just before they come. And as she says, you will not be allocated a desk that doesn't have an arm. Honestly, that is not even what you paid for. So we will do our best with what we have. Okay? And there are many actually who prefer KSL as an examination center. Not some of you here who are complaining. All right, so I'll ask Joshua to just give a vote of thanks and close the day. And then I think you'll meet with CLE again during the webinar in November. As Joshua comes, we will also have another briefing on pupillage on the 16th of October. So please note that in your diary, 16th of October, a briefing on pupillage, because you're expected to proceed on pupillage from the second week of January next year. So we'll have a briefing where we will just give you information on what is expected. We'll go through the documentation that exists on pupillage, the guidelines, the deed, the policy, and everything else that needs to be said. So that is, I think that would be the last briefing that we have as a school with you guys. Otherwise, I wish you a good afternoon. I'm still around, so we'll see each other.
Thank you, Madam Doctor. I heard today you were called Dr. Benuti, but let's give it to you today. Thank you, Dr. Benuti. Good afternoon. The CLE team led by Ms. Jennifer, we thank you for honoring our invitation. And I love your hair, by the way. Your hair looks good. Continue Wongo. Just like I love Dr. Gonite's hair. Anyway, thanks for honoring our invitation and for making this day today our day. I think so many of us have been able to join. I was checking online, we were I think 600 plus, those who joined virtually. And here we're about 700, if I'm not wrong. So this is a very, very huge number. You can imagine these are really brilliant people who are ready to pass. Yeah. We believe and hope that CLE is going to do all they can to to ensure that all these people become advocates next year. When if you don't do the best, we shall occupy. But you said we also are at liberty to make recommendations. Number one, much as you are trying to get your deadlines right, we also have students who are trying to work so hard to get the money. So that means they would require an extension of the registration deadline. It is just a matter of understanding. We understand that you work with deadlines, and that's fine. But you also need to understand that we don't have the money, just available, some of us. Me included, we're still trying to find that money to pay. So for those of us who will not be able to get the money by 1st of October, kindly be kind enough to allow them to pay maybe a week or two after. But we will appreciate. Your portal was not working this morning. I don't know whether it's working now. But yes, but I think it's been giving quite a number of us a lot of problems. And you find that now people are calling me and other student leaders every time. Oh yeah, so you even wonder, I don't work at CLE. I don't even know how their bucket looks like, but then I'm required to respond to some of these queries. So kindly, I had it, Mr. Chief, please, the website is not in good state as of now. I don't know, maybe it's because so many of us are visiting the website. Someone was saying he learned in a jurisdiction where they wrote in capital letters. Please allow those who write in capital letters to write in capital letters. That's a very genuine concern. Someone raised it today, and he was very furious. and also, this is just a request. I don't know, because we have, as you said, we understand, there are budget constraints, but you guys make it look like you're given zero. I think the budget was capped at 70. It's not zero. It's 70%. So that 70% can be used, you just balance here and then we see. For those people who probably have no one to host them in Nairobi, and the farthest they can get to is Nakuru. We could probably have somewhere in Nakuru to have exam. Just look into that. We will seriously appreciate. And of course, finally, I would love to thank the school, Dr. Bonucci. Thank you so much for also allowing the CLE to come today and have this day. It's been a great day. So many of these issues have been dispensed with that we were struggling to respond to. Again, we don't have all the answers. Please, when we say give me a minute or a day to get that information, it's not like we're incompetent. There's a day I told someone, I don't know that one, but give me some time. He was like, why are you guys incompetent? So you even wonder, I don't work at CLE. To my fellows, thank you guys. Thank you so much for the patience. I know it has been long overdue, CLE coming to clear some of these issues, but finally, here we are. And we are happy that today everyone is getting out of this, not very satisfied, but at least having information as to how, what is done, when, and where. So thank you also for being patient today to listen up to this time. I also want to thank my fellow leaders. These guys are doing a great job for mobilizing you and continuous communication to ensure that all of us participate in this. Overall, I wish us all the best, and I hope and pray that CLE will do the right thing, and that all of us will get 9 Ps. Amen? 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 Thank you. God bless you. Have a good afternoon. Someone can pray for us? Yes, Kamini. This is Kamini John. Kamini John. Let's clap for him as he comes. Kamini John is in my class F, and is the most active student in class F. Ask them.
Thank you. We really appreciate each and everyone Thank you, Mr. Joshua. We really appreciate it. Let's all rise up for a word of prayer. Let's pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, we want to pass all our appreciations, all our gratitudes, and all our harmonies unto you. We want to thank you for such a beautiful occasion. Dear God, you are aware that we are now headed to the climax of the long journey that have taken us through for all those years. And now here we are. We want to thank you for each and every officer who works at the CLE for even availing the best environment that may God we may be able to excel and be able to accomplish the purpose that you had for each one of us since the time we started the LLB to this far. We want to thank you for KSL. They have done their best, and honestly, you have used the whole system, the whole administration to ensure that we get the best. As the King of Glory, we now embark on serious revision. We want to pray for the openness of mind. We want to pray for remembrance. We want to pray for the spirit of comprehensiveness. We want to pray that you will be able to guide each and every thought. And my God, there are those who are trusting you even for the finances, especially for the registration of this CLE. We want to believe that the King of Glory, gold and silver belongs to you, and that the King of Glory, none of us will miss the registration for CLE because of finances, and in one way or another you are going to provide. And even my Father, as the CLE has promised to talk with her, that this will come in time, timely, and to each and every person who was trusting you using that means. We want to commit this afternoon before you as we embark onto the classes, as we embark on daily activities, that you shall guide our steps in each and every adventure. As the CLE go to prepare for each and every part for these examinations, that the King of Glory, you shall order their steps, and all will be for the glory and honor of your name. We thank you and we honor you, for we pray this believing and trusting in Jesus' name.
This is a reminder before you all leave that on 4th October we have a gala night, and all of you are welcome.